Hey guys, sorry I'm not there. So today what we're gonna do is you're gonna take out a sheet of paper. You're gonna follow along with me. We're gonna take some notes. It is not in your notes packet because today we are reviewing what we did yesterday. Yesterday we were ordering and comparing percents, decimals, and fractions. What we learned was you can't compare two things unless they are the same. So you can't compare two fractions unless they have the same denominator or unless they're all decimals. You can't compare a decimal and a fraction or a decimal and a percent or a percent and a fraction unless they are in the same form. So we talked about how to get them to be in the same form. So here we go. So we first started off with ordering from least to greatest. The first thing I taught you is you could, if you like, you could change them so that they are all equivalent fractions, since really we've been doing that since the beginning of the year. So in order for them, or not equivalent fractions, fractions with the same denominator. So the first thing we did was, hey, let's look at the denominators. I have 4, 5, 8, and 2. 4, 5, 8, and 2. Which one's the biggest? And you would say 8. So I'm going to look at 8 and I'm going to try and figure out what is my least common denominator. So I start with my biggest and I count out what are the multiples of 8. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48. And it keeps going, but I'm going to stop there. So then I ask myself, okay, which one of those numbers is also divisible by another one, all of the other ones? So we look and we say 8. Can 8 be divided by 4? And you're like, yeah. Can 8 be divided by 5? And you're like, no. So because it can't, and if my computer lets me, we're going to cross it off. We'll see. I've got that spinny wheel there, so we're going to keep going. Then I move on to 16, and I say, can 16 be divided by 4? And you're like, yeah. Can it be divided by 5? No. So we cross that one off. I say, 24 by 4? You're like, yeah. 5? No. 32 by 4? Yes. By 5? No. 40? Yes, by 4. It can be divided by 5, and it can be divided by 2. So 40 is going to be our LCD. So what we're going to do now is we are going to take our fractions and we are going to, if my computer allows me, here we go. We're going to take our fractions and we are going to figure out what the equivalent fractions would be with a denominator of 40. So if I'm looking with a denominator of 40, 3/4 becomes 30 over 40. 2/5, oh, hold on. I know you saw it's 0.75, but I wanted to do the fractions first. So if I change them all to equivalent fractions, I would get 30/40, 16/40, 25/40, and 20/40. If you're like, Mrs. Schultz, how did you get all those? Well, remember we figured out our LCD was 40. And so what I asked myself on each of them was, what times 4 got me to 40? And you would say 10. And so I did that to the top. What times 5 gets you to 40? Well, times 8. So I did that to the top. 8 times what gets you to 40? Times 5. So I did that to the top. And this was times 20, and I did that to the top. And then you can go ahead and you could say the smallest fraction is 2/5, and then a half, and then 5/8, and then 3/4. And you're done. However, some of you are probably thinking, Miss Schultz, I didn't like doing it that way. I like changing them to decimals. If you like to change them to decimals, change them to decimals. You are allowed to use a calculator, and we now know that if we do our top number divided by our bottom number, we get our decimal. So if I take 3/4 and I do 3 divided by 4, you get 0.75. If you do 2 divided by 5, and 5 divided by 8, and 1 divided by 2, you get all of these decimals. Now if I look at these decimals and I'm trying to order them, I look and I say, okay, if I cover them all up, can I order them just from looking at that first digit? And you should say yes, because you got a 4, a 5, a 6, and a 7. Done. This is your smallest, then the 0.5, then the 0.6, then the 0.7. The other numbers don't matter unless you have two numbers that are the same. And then you have to move on to the next and the next and the next until you see a difference. So all in all, our answer is 2/5, a half, 5/8, and 3/4. Okay, we're going to do that. 3 more problems. Here we go. Go ahead and write down 5/7 and 0.7. We're comparing them, less than, greater than, or equal to. Now, when I'm looking at these, I'm going to go ahead and say 5/7 is not a decimal and 0.7 is not a fraction. So they're not the same. So I need to make them the same. So I'm going to make them the same by saying 5/7. I'm going to change that to a decimal by doing 5 divided by 7. 5 divided by 7 is 0.714, and it goes on and on and on. I'm only going to be concerning myself with the first 3 digits for right now. My second number is 0.7. That one is no different. So I look and I say, I line up my decimals and I say, okay, which one's bigger? Well, I go ahead and I cover up the others and I say, well, they're both 0.7. They both have 7. So I move to the next digit. This top one has a 1. This bottom one has nothing. So because it has nothing, we are going to go ahead and we're going to know that this 1 is larger. So therefore, 5/7 is my larger number. Again, once I create them into decimals, it makes my life a whole lot easier. Okay. Now I have 5/12 and 2/5. You can do one of two things. You can make them equal so that they have the same denominator. I would probably use 60. But I have a feeling most of you are like, Ms. Schultz, I just want to make a decimal. So we're going to make a decimal. 5/12. When I do 5 divided by 12 in your calculator, so do it right now. Pause it. Do 5 divided by 12. And do 2 divided by 5. Pause this video. See what you get. You should get 5/12 as 0.4166 and 2/5 is 0.4. When I compare these two, I would see that they both have a 4. But then the next digit would be this one has a 1 and this one has nothing. So this one must be bigger. How are we doing? If you have any questions at this point, please raise your hand, ask the sub for some help, and you can always go back and rewind. 6/7 and 80%. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I'm going to make them both into decimals because that is what I think is easiest. If you want to make them both percents or both something else, that's fine. I think decimals is easier. So here we go. 6/7 into decimal form. Can you figure it out? Pause the video and figure out what 6/7 and 80% are in decimal form. What you should have figured out is 6/7 is 0.857. Keep in mind that I did 6 divided by 7. 80% is 0.8 because what I did is I moved the decimal 2 spots, which that doesn't look great, but I moved it 2 spots to the left and I got my decimal. All of these were greater than. I did not mean for that to happen, but they were. 0.857 is larger. The next thing I want to talk about, we're kind of done with these. We're done reviewing. I'm going to let you get to work. The one thing I do want to remind you of is don't forget to look at those whole numbers. If you recall from yesterday, I was saying, you know, if one has a 1 and the other one has, let's say, Oh, this one's not a good example. So let me see. If I have like 1.5 and I'm comparing it to one that says 4.6, you should be able to right away just look at that. That's supposed to be a 4, guys. And say, oh my gosh, that one's bigger. And you can tell me this one's 4.6 bigger because it has a bigger whole number. Don't forget to look at the whole numbers. All right, so right now I want you to use your notes. I want you to use what we did here. Go back if you need to. Ask questions for help if you need them. But I'm going to have you go ahead and get to work on your classwork, your seat work, and have a good day. If you have any questions, I will be there later today. I'm just currently in a meeting. So I will be there later. Feel free to stop by and ask me any questions you got. See you later.